Hey, White Sox fans, we are in experimental mode. Sox Pop on the farm. It's number, I don't know what it is, 42. With me is our minors expert slash workhorse. You decide which it really is. I'll say expert, but the truth is he's a workhorse for us. It's Darren Black. Joining us, he has just done his first Player of the Week, which was sort of, let's face it, it was an easy assignment for Darren because
Yeah.
he really just had one team to track because Charlotte pretty much has been in play while the other three affiliates really now only I think at this point have 4 games or in process of having 4 games under the belt. And in fact, some of them have just been like wading through ankle deep water in the dugout. They haven't got to play their games. Dash maybe has played 1 game, now maybe just their second tonight. I know they have getting washed out after washed out after washed out. But yeah, welcome. We are trying a little bit of different format behind the scenes here, so hopefully there won't be too many stops and starts. Hopefully, Darren, you're not wasting your time. Hopefully this is recording, and we'll be able to put it up as a podcast and on YouTube. If not, hey, it was nice doing this practice run with you
Yeah,
that no
woohoo.
one will ever hear. So welcome.
Yeah,
All
great
right.
to be here.
Good. Hey, this is the debut of our, whatever you want to call this. There's titles on the screen there.
Yeah. Are we the only ones that can see him though? I don't
That'll
know.
be another thing. Hey, can anyone? All right. Anyhow, at some point, listen. This is all part of our move from the SBN platform to Fans First Sports Network. This is something they're sort of opening up to us. So we're able to give you a better experience, including what will be down the road if there ever is an event really that is worthy of live streaming. Obviously, we sort of missed opening day and all that, but we'll be able to do some live programming where we'll be able to interact with you who are viewing, all our dedicated viewers. I know we actually do have a pretty good amount of people subscribing on YouTube. That's pretty cool. But we'll be able to do this maybe to Facebook, although I don't myself. Sorry, Facebook. I don't really touch it, but I mean we can still broadcast to it, and we probably will be doing that. So anyhow, with all that out of the way, it is Sox Pop on the Farm number 42. We're going to mostly be focusing on the Charlotte Knights because they have been in play. But also we're going to talk a little bit about, maybe some player assignments. I know there's one I'm looking forward to discussing with Darren because, I don't know, probably a little funny behind the scenes story there. But hey, Darren, as I try to do something fancy, let's talk about the Charlotte Knights and their opening week. We're going to get to some specifics, but generally, listen, they're playing, and they're actually not playing badly. What is going? And of course, on this podcast, we lose Darren's camera. Anyhow, we'll just keep rolling. Darren is probably going to be trying to like light a match to get his camera back on. He's back on to me. Who knows what anyone can see? I can see you now again, Darren. I love it. I got to tell you, I love the solar technology for the laptop, but it's not. I
Yeah.
don't sound like a certain former president, but right now it's like the wind's blowing and your TV's going off, or the wind stops blowing so your TV's going off. But no, good to have you back. Always great to see you. And hey, listen, he's got the color coded, the team coded hat. So let's not mess around. This guy is Knights, true to the core. But listen, they're like, I think they're better than 500. Again, not that records matter, but I mean, listen, this is not what we're used to with them, especially given the fact that they don't have the most killer personnel there. But they've been playing all right.
No, yeah. I mean, they set the bar as low as possible last
Well
year.
said.
So um really it was only up. And that's pretty much what I said in the preview, that it literally couldn't be worse. There's no scenario it
Yeah.
could be worse. And so far, the pitching has looked good, especially the bullpen has looked good. And you've seen two guys from Charlotte, not even on the 40 man already with the White Sox for various reasons. And now we've Jake Berger is back up for an injury. Lenyn Sosa is back up for an injury. So that depth that we were talking about is getting used a lot
Yeah.
very quickly. But it's all guys that, in their very limited time of playing in 9 games or so, did show like, hey, might as well deserve a look.
Well, let's talk about the big. I guess the big news. It's bad news for the big club. It's good news for one particular player for Charlotte because Lenyn Sosa he got out gangbusters. You pointed out in your weekly MVP, he was our weekly MVP. All the things he's doing right, including some not just hard contact, but contact. Not striking out at a. I think essentially you said he's basically the double A Lenyn Sosa, and that's great to see, and that's why he's up with the big club.
Yeah, he was showing good pop. Both homers weren't even in Charlotte, which is fantastic to see. It's the easiest place to hit homers. He had more doubles or more extra base hits than singles, more walks than singles, more walks than strikeouts. Basically, more everything than anything bad. I am dismayed that he's not in the starting lineup today. Maybe he got a really late flight or really early flight today, so I'll be more mad if he's not in the starting lineup tomorrow. But yeah,
I mean, the good
he
news,
looks more like
Darren,
the
is
double A
that
guy.
yeah, the good news is that Tony La Russa is no longer the manager, so the chance of him duplicating his first stint with the White Sox, where he basically came up for probably roughly whatever, a week, 10 days, and pretty much sat and watched, is probably not going to happen. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, he is the better defensive option over Romy Gonzalez at second. So I do think if they are going to go with Jake Berger at third for the time being, then might as well have a pretty sure-handed middle infield with Elvis Andrus and Lenyn Sosa. I would prefer that. And it would just get more Lenyn more time at second, where he will probably eventually be the everyday guy. If we're all kind of looking at Elvis Andrus and him more looking like the Oakland guy than the White Sox guy.
Yeah.
But that's about a different minor league team out in Oakland. We can talk about the Charlotte Knights.
Yeah. Given the circumstances of injuries, and of course the White Sox. I mean, I know this is the minors podcast, but let's talk a little bit about the White Sox too, because this connects to Charlotte, and what is increasingly. I mean, we call it like a 4A, league is for a team, but there are legitimate prospects, and with presumably Jose Rodriguez advancing sometime soon. I mean, it's starting to get stocked with probably at least a couple, three real blue chips for the team. As it should be, maybe more, but at least we got that. If the big club, really even extending to catching, and of course pitching is always so tricky, but at least in terms of like a position area, I don't know, catching, outfield, middle infield in particular. I mean, this is an area where the White Sox do seem at least a little fortified to weather what was going to be the inevitable hit, where Tim Anderson's playing 120 games this year, and maybe Andrews gets hurt for a while. Moncada, of course, is he's not going to get there, but middle infield's away. Sosa being primary, but there's even depth potentially beyond that, where I mean this might be the one area. I don't think you want to call it of strength quite yet, but I mean at least of plausible names.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they have any area of strength in terms of depth. You could maybe the bullpen is the most like that, but even then there are issues that you can just see. They've brought up two guys already, and one of them was for poor performance. But yeah, in terms of middle infield, I mean, the best thing about it is they actually do. Lenyn Sosa and Jose Rodriguez can actually play both second and short. It's not this thing we saw last year where they had guys in the outfield. Jose Rodriguez took a big step defensively last year. I'm not going to really parse anything in the 3 games he played this year. And Lenyn Sosa has been a pretty sure-handed defensive shortstop since he came over stateside. That's kind of been his, he's got a better glove. Let's wait for the bat. That bat has seemed to cut up. And then after that, I mean, then we're getting into more prospecty territory. We're not really expecting to see Colson Montgomery in the majors this year. Guys like that. Your guy Loidel Chapelli starting at the same level, it seems like Colson Montgomery. We're probably not going to see him in the majors this year. But at least for the two guys that are up pretty high, both I would think top 5 prospects. They're guys that can actually field, play the positions, have bats that you can get a little bit of excited about. So if we're putting anything as a strength on the offensive side, it's certainly second/short, where they do have some guys that you're like, okay, I'm fine if they're up.
Yeah. Darren Black taking over hosting duties by previewing the second half of our show, where we will delightfully discuss Loidel Chapelli Jr., but we are still in Charlotte. We're stuck in Charlotte, but let's focus on Lenyn a little bit more here. I mean, of course, extremely small sample size, but okay, plausibly, if he's the hitter or even close, not even saying at the major league level, but let's say even at AAA, let's say he's now the hitter he was in AA, which means he could still make the jump and be that hitter, I suppose, in the majors as well. But I mean, what are the key things that you saw early in that first week with Charlotte that got him the call up, or what are the things you want to see for the full year wherever he's playing that would really show that step forward for him that he wasn't doing maybe once he got to Charlotte or in the majors last year?
Yeah, so I think pretty much, I think anybody that was watching the Sox last year and might have caught his first game, you could tell he was just extremely overwhelmed. He couldn't catch up to any high fastball. He was chasing everything that was low and away, or really high and away, high and inside. He was chasing everything. He struck out a third of the time. It wasn't very good.
Yeah.
And he did look more comfortable at the plate once he went back down to Charlotte and in these first 9 games he had there at this year. So what I'm looking for is just a more deliberate approach. You know, I don't expect him to have more walks than strikeouts in the majors. That'd be awesome, but that's not that's not what's going to happen.
Hey, we get the rookie of the
he's
year,
not
Darren.
Miguel Vargas or anything. But yeah, just kind of seeing that, I want to see him to pull the ball a decent amount, not be late and kind of just squeak through on the other way, even if it is a hit. But you know, showing more authority just in the batter's box in general. You know, he doesn't have the learning curve of the pitch clock. It's been around for a couple of years. He's not coming into something like totally different than what he's not used to than a lot of these other guys that started that have been in the majors previously and coming into this year. So he's used to that. But so actually getting there, looking comfortable, looking like an MLB player, and we can see that probably in the first game. We might not see any results, but if he looks confident up there, then I'll be, excited for his prospects going forward.
Okay, let's shift gears here a little bit. Darren, was lucky enough to get to do a minor league update already this year, and it should have been a full affiliate one, but this was one where the Dash had a doubleheader rained out, and I believe Kannapolis was also rained out. In other words, I only had a couple of games to write on, and so of course, because who wants to just cheap out and hardly do any work for the dedicated readers of the White Sox minor league update every night, I decided to dig in because I picked on the Charlotte rotation so badly in our staff discussions and in talking with you on this podcast. I decided to revisit how things looked last year, because my estimate, the number I've been carrying around and trashing the White Sox and Rick Hahn about even into this year, was that 2/3 of the starts last year for Charlotte were by guys who weren't starters, which sounds horrifying. It is horrifying. That's undeniable. Now, when I dug down, and I'm not going to link it, you can find it, or I'll link it, whatever. We'll see how much time I have when I'm not juggling little titles for our cute little podcast here. That it turned out it was more realistically, more fairly. I mean, not that any of these starters are necessarily like, great and future stars, but in terms of just pure who you would consider star, the actual number was really more like a third. A third of the starts last
such
year,
a low
which
number.
Still isn't great, but I mean, it's not as horrifying as 2/3. But at any rate, here's the setup. Get to it, Brett. Here's the setup, and that is that at the moment I did my write-up on Saturday, though the average length of start was very, it's early season anyway, and you've got guys like Jonathan Stever, who I guess is still a starter, but he's obviously going to work slowly into it. A couple guys got kicked around too. I think there was a 17-0 game that very night. So I mean, the average innings per start wasn't great, but pretty much at that point, I think it was 8 games at that juncture. All 8 had been actually guys you could call legitimate starters. So we've gone from now 67% last year to 100. We know that's not gonna hold, and nor should it. I'm not holding the White Sox to that standard, although it'd be delicious. I imagine Tampa finds a way to get real starters starting all their AAA games, but I know we talked about this last podcast. We can't be Tampa. I got it. But I mean, that is a good development, including guys they just sort of like guys new to the system, like Sanchez, even Schulten's. Now he's with the Sox, but I mean, whatever the mix is, they got guys who are at least technically or theoretically or could be starters, and that doesn't even include Tanner Banks, who has seemingly been playing like a co-starter role, but he hasn't actually, I don't think, really been. He hasn't started every appearance he has this year. Now he's hurt, but I mean that is some sort of promising turn, is it not, Darren? Do we have something positive to talk about with Charlotte on the rotation side?
Yeah, I mean they wouldn't be over 500 with a bad pitching staff at this point. Davis Martin went 5 innings both starts. That's what he should be doing, and he should be the guy getting the most innings anyway, because that's probably what he's going to do when he's called up, to get a lot of innings when necessary. Jesse Schultens did get a start in there. Now he's not going to be there, but it looks like Ricardo Sanchez took his spot. And he's kind of one of those tweeners we've talked about before. Like Jesse Schultens is a tweener with that you can see move to the bullpen pretty easily and kind of go back and forth between there. But Nate Fisher has been right there. Like also with production, Nate Fisher's been right there. And then probably after those 3, you're getting to like the Stevers. Like I don't know when he's going to go 5 innings this year. I don't know if he's ever going to go 5 innings in a start this year. But I think he got through the 40-man roster. He was DFA'd. So maybe kind of obvious why you would DFA a guy that you're not thinking is going to start and you're not thinking is going to provide much value in the bullpen. But he should probably start every 5th, 6th day. He'll get 2 or 3 innings maybe through the end of April. Then maybe 3-4, and then maybe 4-4-4-4-4. Just kind of see where he gets, and then probably be shut down late in the year when they call up of those Birmingham guys once the college guys start going through the system. But that is a bit down the road. But you are getting a sense that there is an actual starting rotation. I think that 17-0 game was the AJ Alexi game, if I remember, because he walked 7 guys and got 4 outs.
It's gonna happen, yeah.
Now we've seen with the White Sox that some of these guys just have really awful days.
Yeah.
Their version is homers. AJ Alexi's version is not finding the plate whatsoever. So we'll kind of see how that goes, because he is on the 40-man, and we do expect him to get some innings.
Yeah.
But hopefully he kind of settles down there, and it's not one of those, the White Sox got another,
right,
starter with control issues.
And
but I think I'd be pleasantly surprised that people are actually looking like they're supposed to be doing the job they're doing.
Yeah. Let me spoon feed. Let me set this one up for you. Let me put it right on a platter for you, Darren, because you're a guy who is. I'm not going to say you're a Davis Martin champion, but I think you stick up for him in a way that folks might be a little more quickly to dismiss. And while he hasn't necessarily been gangbusters, his first 2 starts are both 5 innings. He's doing what he needs to do to prove that he really is the viable, we'll say 6th, but I mean realistically 3rd, 4th, 5th starter on this team, because we just know that's the next house of cards to fall on the South Side. Sorry, fans. But I mean, he's a guy who's proven at least what maybe with Sean Burke breathing down his neck or whatever, or Christian Mania. I mean, he's proven that he could certainly be what he was last year for the White Sox at the minimum.
Yeah, and I'm not going to make huge pronunciations of 2 starts. Right. If we remember last year with Johnny Cueto, he was actually pretty awful in Charlotte. But that's just kind of how sometimes Charlotte goes, especially in small sample sizes, because you can get in a lot of trouble if you walk some guys and then boom, it's a homer. That's like 80-mile-an-hour exit velo because it's Charlotte, something like that, which was Cueto's issue in Charlotte. But yeah, so basically what he's been doing is what he's been doing his whole minor league career. Maybe he would have liked to strike out a couple more people and walk a couple less, but he started a game he didn't start in March. So he has 2 starts in April. I'm not going to be really like, time to pump the brakes on Davis Martin because, he didn't strike out a guy per 9, something like that. But he's a guy you're going to see. He has got a great slider and a fastball that doesn't really play well. But when he gets ahead in the strike zone or the count and uses that slider to the great effect against righties, that's his sweet spot. Just if he's going up against a lefty heavy lineup, then bet the over on the other team. How about that?
Davis, yeah, fair enough. And let's stick with pitching because it's something that you brought out in again your weekly, and that is the pen. I mean, by nature, all pens at every level can be in flux. You want to have your major league team just have your like fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth inning guy, whatever. But it rarely works that way too. Fifth, boy, that's a bad rotation if you're starting in the fifth there. And what am I saying? But Lenyn Ramsey's a guy who you could tell the team had put a little priority on last year, even in getting the Arizona Fall League assignment. He gets the assignment to. I think he got some opportunities in spring training. Don't recall exactly, but clearly went to Charlotte as sort of going in, having the late guy role, if not the only or even main. He's definitely getting the opportunities, and he seems like he's making the best of them. And this is promise that we've sort of like been crossing our fingers on. He's a big body. He's a guy who clearly seemingly had the potential to be able to contribute at a major league level. And now, as close as he is to it, it looks like that might actually be able to come to fruition.
Yeah, I've said this on many a podcast. I always take a look at any reliever. If they're getting late inning looks, then that means the White Sox organization, Chris Getz, whomever else is kind of in that pitching infrastructure, that they are looking at that guy and saying that guy can be in a major league bullpen. Right. Doesn't mean they're going to actually end up being in like a late inning option once they get there. But if they're getting the more important innings out of anybody else, then odds are that you're going to see them on the south side at some point. Kenyon Middleton and Lenyn Ramsey were basically being the eighth and ninth inning guys to start this kind of first-ish week. And Middleton probably got the call because he has previous major league experience. But if you're looking at someone else, this would be the third time that they go off the 40-man. If they do go to Lenyn Ramsey, which is it's a lot this early. It's April 11th. He is a guy to watch out for. Again, his issue is just control. That's still the issue in his very limited time, his 4 games. He's still walking too many guys. But it is slightly improved on what it is last season, which is 2 thumbs up. Because he had another injury-plagued year last year after what was a pretty decent look in 2021. So just kind of hoping he's more of that 21 guy and someone that you can actually see in the majors. Or I don't know if it's kind of a doomsday bullpen scenario if you see him in the majors. I might have said that if Jesse Schultens was in the bullpen, I would have said that was a doomsday, but they do seem to be using their bullpen arms more liberally, which is also a 2 thumbs up thing. That's what you should be doing. If you should be doing that, if you need to find some innings from some guys, and might as well, in Schulten's case, grab guys that can go more than one. Lenyn Ramsey, I don't think can really go more than 1 right now. I think he's might be a 1 and done because he is still coming off of an injured year. So maybe he just needs some more time there. And then, once they get all of the use of Jesse Schultens that you possibly can with guys not really going deep in games right now, then they can start going for the bigger buck guys, the guys that can get that 1 out that you necessarily need in the 6th if you don't want to go to your main guys. And anybody outside the 40-man, I think that's Lenyn Ramsey at this point.
Yeah. I mean, we've been sort of rooting for him. I know he's had some stops and starts. He certainly has not been the most off injured or the most start and stop among a number of late inning arms. All seemed like they were on more of a fast track to Chicago. We shouldn't even name them, because it calls them out as being hurt, but also because there is quite a number of them. So it's good to see one get to Charlotte and actually be 1 week, 10 days in, doing pretty well, acquitting himself pretty well in the position. All right, Darren, let's take a break. Let me get this title off of here. We're going to take a break. This is probably at the halfway point, probably well into it, because we're going to probably just sweep up with a little bit of other affiliate chatter. Who knows? Maybe you got like 20 names for me, so who knows? Maybe this is not even close to the halfway point. But either way, we'll be back in a minute or so to talk more White Sox affiliates on Sox Pop on the Farm. Hey, White Sox fans, Brett Ballantini, lucky enough. It says host under my name. I guess that means I'm hosting. You know, when you're the host, that means it's your job to find somebody who actually knows what they're talking about so the podcast can be filled with great information. And guess what? For the 42nd time approximately, oh, maybe you missed one or two. I think I had a Julie Brady one once or whatever. Okay, for the 40-odd time, Darren Black is the expert I've chosen to educate me and to help inform you, the listenership and viewership. And if you are viewing, by the way, we're on a new platform. I don't know where to, as a good host, I always try to look into the camera. I don't know where I'm looking anymore. I think it's changed now. So if you see me looking over Darren's head, staring at his Charlotte, his very, very dapper Charlotte Knights cap, although I don't know if it's in really true Charlotte colors anymore. I don't see any teal in there. So I might, hey, Charlotte, come on. Darren, he's up in Chicagoland area. Come on. If I look like I have a problem, if it looks like I'm, my prescriptions are off or something, I apologize. I'll figure out where I should be looking for these to be a better host for you. Because after all, looking straight into the camera and being engaging is really the only purpose I serve on any of these podcasts. So I want to at least be able to do that job, Darren. And I'm afraid I'm not doing it too well. However, let's talk now about some other affiliates. And let's just start with a fun little anecdote, and that is, as always, Darren, you have the unenviable task of writing, because we want to get timely previews out to our Southside Sox readership and Sox Populi listenership, and we want to get stuff out in advance of games beginning. Now, of course, first of all, my bad, mea culpa, I didn't even have the correct opening day for the other three affiliates. For some reason, I looked up that it was Friday, and it turns out it was last Thursday, so that was a whole mess anyhow. But anyway, we got all our stuff out. But I mean, it's always a challenge for you, and you always joke about it because it's like the White Sox don't, I guess, nor should they. They don't owe us anything. They're trying to make their decisions, but they don't really get rosters out until the morning of the game or the first game or whatever. So it makes a challenge for somebody like you who's trying to put together a good preview for our readers. And so as we were seeing, or as I was seeing at least on Twitter or whatever, rosters being announced, I think I sent you, because we had speculated. I guess I was the crazy dreamer saying, hey, White Sox, challenging the White Sox, send Loidel Chapelli Jr. to Kannapolis. Come on, let's give this guy a challenge. And I think, we were both of the feeling of well, it probably isn't going to, it doesn't seem like it's going to be, I haven't heard any news. So it seemed like he was going to be starting in Arizona. And I think when I saw the Kannapolis roster first, I sent you a message that said oh yeah, man, they they chickened out or whatever. I can't believe he's whatever I said. And then of course it turns out that I see the Dash roster where Loidel is put with. I mean, you could call it aggressive, but based on age and I guess technically performance, it maybe isn't. But tell me a little bit about that. I mean, it was a surprise. I think we just set our expectations low. But what do you think about it now? I believe he homered tonight. So, I mean, he does seem like he's, he seems solid so far at high A, but what do you think about that? And maybe what does it signal in terms of maybe how the White Sox see Loidel?
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of assumed once you come from the DSL, you will probably go to the ACL and then maybe even Kannapolis. I thought Kannapolis was in play for Loidel Chapelli. I did not think at all that he'd be with the Winston-Salem Dash. And like you said, it does make sense with age. But again, you're coming from the DSL. It's, I'm not really sure what kind of level to term it as. I don't want to say it's high school, but it's, probably, Missouri Valley Conference baseball, something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's high school age. I mean, it's only fair. I mean, you're not dissing it to say a lot of these guys are high school age.
Better of the crop, but it's still, 16, 17-year-olds going against Loidel Chapelli, who seems like a grown man compared to the 16 and 17-year-olds. So that's why he's going to the Dash, I guess. But thankfully, now that he is there, we can, by the end of April, we'll probably be getting a better read of what type of player he is. I don't need to remind everybody from the DSL days of Benjamin Bailey of him becoming a top 7 White Sox prospect and now being released. So I really just kind of hear, Christian Mania, for example, didn't do well on the DSL, but he was he has an advanced changeup and his curve looks kind of good, but he needs to add velo to his fastball. You take note of that. don't really care about the stats. And then here he is in AA, and he's like, oh, he's actually, well, cool. Everything that we read back then was actually cool. Worked out. That 17-year-old scouting report played up a bit. I mean, I really like it. I know, I think you said they're giving him the Luis Robert treatment. I thought that's pretty funny. Because that's true. He is. He's getting the Luis Robert treatment. Tens of millions of dollars less, but he's right there at the start.
It's a different era. Yeah.
But I did think it was more interesting that he's at second. That's, again, kind of, we talked about earlier with Lenyn Sosa and Jose Rodriguez. That is a position that if you look at from just the major leagues, you're like, oh, we need a second baseman. We need them. But if you're looking from kind of a prospect central time or this time, then you're kind of looking like, oh, there's, Lenyn ahead of him. There's Jose Rodriguez ahead of him. Colson Montgomery, are we sure he's going to work at the left side? Does he need to go on the right? But I digress on that point. But it does seem like before, at the start of the seasons, you had a guy at second or in that middle infield. You're like, okay, there's one guy at each of these levels that you're like kind of excited about to varying degrees. So I think that's very interesting. He's at second. And then we'll kind of see where it goes from there. Because if we remember Romy Gonzalez, he played everywhere in the minors, and he's still doing that. So I don't know if they view him kind of the same way and just want to make him comfortable in his first time stateside and then kind of start moving him around and see what he can do. But pleasantly surprised that they're actually being aggressive on a guy that did well in the DSL for being quite a few years older than league average.
Forget my that's a bad comp, Luis Robert Jr. Let's just put him on the Oscar Colas track. Okay, so he didn't play professionally in Japan, but he got the assignment to Winston-Salem, and then he started chomping at the bit. He started getting ticked that he was being kept down at Winston-Salem, and then once the White Sox were like, okay, you're crying about it, you're being a jerk about, well, okay, let's not overstate it, but he was definitely getting frustrated with the fact that he was still at the dash. He had mid-advance more clicking because he was doing well and playing center field, and then took off, and now he's on the roster, and he does seem like, in theory, he does seem like a guy who could stick. Not too many hiccups, I think, yet. So, okay, let's put my Cuban brother, let's put him on the Colas track, and maybe, who knows, next year we see him on the south side. I mean, the White Sox will have the opportunity at second base. Clearly, Elvis Andrus he might not even be the 2023 long-term, guy. And, I mean, you hate to talk this way, but I mean, Tim Anderson may not, let's just say right now, he may not be here forever, or even beyond, another year. And the White Sox do have a real talent a bunch in the middle infield. We've listed off. We're talking about four guys who are all middle infielder core guys. I mean, Loidel. I mean, obviously having to be rounded up into guys who are basically AAA, ish, AA, AAA-ish level. But I mean, that's a good core to have because you can always slide somebody to third. I know Loidel has outfield, backup, so who knows? Hey, you remember Tim Anderson was supposed to be, wasn't he supposed to be a center fielder or something? Because he was having fielding problems, I guess, He did have a fielding problem that got him injured yesterday, but of course, Monday, but that actually was not in any way his fault. It's the fault of the clown car, the yakety sax, is the White Sox defense still. Although I guess it's a little bit improved this year, Darren. Okay, let's take this title down. Let's just go down to, let's talk about other assignments. Is there anything else that jumped out to you in terms of, I mean, nothing as big a surprise as Chapelli Jr.'s assignment, but anything else that seemed odd, or a clump of players that seemed intriguing, or did everything else sort of play as anticipated?
Yeah, I mean, I love early season stats. So I love the fact that Luis Mayesis is hitting .636 right now in 3 games. It's a very fun stat. And we talked about Christian Mania earlier, looking pretty good. But Matt Thompson also looked equally as good.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed that maybe something kind of clicked here. But really, other than that, I don't want to, like, the Dash have played one game, Kannapolis have played two. The rest of the guys got Easter off. Nobody else got Easter off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they really haven't played. So, but just
Yeah.
notable that from the pitching examples in Double A, Matthew Thompson and Christian Mania struck out a lot of guys, which
Yeah.
that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think I had the Mania game where I think he gave up 3 or 4 earned, but yeah, he K'd.
Yeah.
I want to say 9 of his 12 outs were Ks.
Mhm.
If you don't want to be giving up runs, but if you're giving up runs, but you're also you're keeping your control and you are punching guys out, I mean, that doesn't maybe even cancel out, but that's a good thing along with maybe not so good a thing. You'd rather have that than 4 earned and 2 strikeouts. I mean, that's still something very promising.
If I am remembering that, he did the runs he did allow. I think one of them was a 2-run homer, and that is something that, you know, each of these guys do need to cut down on. But they were walking, you know, getting a little wild. Like just looking at Mania's, he actually did have a balk, which is kind of funny. But like I think 4 innings for both of them. So I'm not gonna. We've talked about in the preview podcast with Matthew Thompson that he will do this. He will look, oh, there he's got it, and then he'll have an AJ Alexi game and walk 7 and leave before the end of the second. So
yeah.
Once we do our April monthly, maybe he has a good month. I don't know, and then we can get all back on that train. But I'm not gonna cross my fingers yet.
Darren, we're doing a podcast, a weekly podcast on the minors. We've got to overhype and get super excited and just get unrealistic about these guys. No, of course, we don't want anybody to fail. So, yeah, you do want to project like, okay, this is what I see. I mean, whether he's like one of your guys or not, you still want to see all these guys succeed. I don't think there's any White Sox prospect among our top 100 or all, whatever, 250 or more in the organization where you're like, oh, man, I want that guy to just flame out. He's terrible. You know, oh, man, I hate that guy. But, I mean, you know, of course, it's natural to be like, okay, this is what we, you know, Matt Thompson was projected as. This was reminiscent of his best game. Oh, now he's got it. You know, I see it. And, you know, of course, I'm going to want to feel that way. But yes, you are, you know, unlike me, going to, you know, get a little bit excitable and lose my mind when Loidel Chapelli Jr. is assigned to the dash, and I send you messages with a lot of exclamation points and a lot of cussing. But you know, of course, yeah, you're preaching calm, and that makes sense. And you know, in a week we'll have a little bit more data to go off of. One more start for all these guys, unless of course North Carolina ends up just underwater and they just never play another game again. But you know, I guess we'll see how all that works. A lot of rain we've been weathering here, I guess. But I guess, I don't know. We missed anything else? Or should we wrap up our little experimental Brett doesn't know where to look and Darren just sitting back cool with his Charlotte Knights cap edition of this podcast?
I mean, if we really want to go through all 27 outs of that one dash game they played, I think we would be
that'll be next week when they don't play another game. So then at that point, we'll have to drill down enough to say, okay, let's really get into it because we're going to have to extrapolate a whole season's worth of stats from just that one game. Or congratulations, Luis May says you have the highest organizational batting average in White Sox history at 636. Well done.
He'll keep that
had
going.
a double or two. Okay, well, let's wrap this up. Hopefully, you know, this actually recorded, Darren. Hopefully we'll be able to put it up. But, you know, hey, listen.
It says live, and there's a ticker.
It does say live. You know, it's not live, but it does say live.
Guess it doesn't say recording.
This is so exciting. Well, it is recording. So, you know, listen. Hey, let's talk more about the inner workings of this. And people, Hey, listen. Yeah, you can shut it off anytime, folks. But anyhow, we'll do this again in a week or so. We'll have another MVP under the belt. It won't be. I think it's safe to say it will not be Lenyn Sosa because he will be on the White Sox. Who knows? Maybe he'll be the White Sox MVP, and Mitch Ransdell will be drawing a sketch of him and talking about the great excitement we're all feeling about having Sosa on the team and you know Tim who, Elvis who, whatever. But you know, we'll see. We'll have another MVP to talk about. We'll have actual probably gameplay, some actual meat there to discuss a little bit more. And who knows? I guess maybe we'll end up going longer than 40 minutes. How do we do that, Darren? Again, hopefully you recorded it. Hopefully you're able to listen to it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Darren, let's do it again in a week.
Yep, I'll be here for 43.
Okay. That's true. You were like aced out of like one or two of them, so you can never miss again. You got to be there with me. All right, we're pushing toward 50. I'm going to try to end this recording, but thanks everybody for listening on the Fans First Sports Network and Sox Populi. Okay.